All right, good morning, guys. Sorry it took me so long to get this recording up. I was trying to find a spot to record in. I'm moving right now, so my house is super messy. But I found a spot, and I'm going to see if this technology works today. So I'm going to start here on page 1. I'm going to read through to page, I think today is 13, and then I will make sure that the video is up way earlier tomorrow. I will get it to you before 8 a.m., so like first period, okay? So I'm sorry about today. We will get better at this. We're all just learning. So here we go. Stargirl. Let's start it by Jerry Spinelli. Porcupine necktie. Oh, we're starting with a tongue twister. When I was little, my Uncle Pete had a necktie with a porcupine painted on it. Porcupine is those little animals that have like spines on all of them. You should Google it. Anyway, I thought that a necktie was just about the neatest thing in the world. Uncle Pete would stand patiently before me while I ran my fingers over the silky surface, half expecting to be stuck by one of the quills. Once he let me wear it. I kept looking for one of my own, but I could never find one. I was 12 when we moved from Pennsylvania to Arizona. When Uncle Pete came to say goodbye, he was wearing the tie. I thought he did so to give me one last look at it, and I was grateful. But then, with a dramatic flourish, he whipped off the tie and draped it around my neck. "It's yours," he said, "going away present." I loved that porcupine tie so much that I decided to start a collection. 2 years after we settled in Arizona, the number of ties in my collection was still 1. Where do you find a porcupine necktie in Micah, Arizona, or anywhere else for that matter? On my 14th birthday, I read about myself in the local newspaper. The family section ran a regular feature about kids on their birthdays, and my mother had called in some info. The last sentence read, "As a hobby, Leo Borlock collects porcupine neckties." Several days later, coming home from school, I found a plastic bag on our front step. Inside was a gift wrap package tied with a yellow ribbon. The tag said, "Happy birthday." I opened the package, and it was a porcupine necktie. 2 porcupine neckties were tossing darts with their quills, while a third was picking its teeth. I inspected the box, the tag, the paper. Nowhere could I find the giver's name. I asked my parents, I asked my friends, I called my Uncle Pete, and everyone denied knowing anything about it. At the time, I simply considered the episode a mystery. It did not occur to me that I was being watched. We were all being watched. All right, chapter 1. Did you see her? That was the first thing Kevin said to me on the first day of school of 11th grade. We were waiting for the bell to ring. "See who?" I said. "Ha!" He craned his neck, scanning the mob, a big group of people. He had witnessed something remarkable, and it showed on his face. He grinned, still scanning. "You'll know." There were hundreds of us, milling about, calling names, pointing to summer-tanned faces we hadn't seen since June. Our interest in each other was never keener or more interested than during the 15 minutes before the first bell of the first day. I punched his arm. "Who?" The bell rang, and we poured inside. I heard it again in homeroom, a whispered voice behind me as we said the Pledge of Allegiance. "Did you see her?" I heard it in the hallways. I heard it in English, in geometry. "Did you see her?" Who could it be? A new student? A spectacular blonde from California? Or from back east, where many of us came from? Or one of those summer makeovers, someone who leaves in June looking like a little girl and returns in September as a full-bodied woman? And 10-week miracle? And then in earth sciences, I heard the name. Stargirl. Page 4. I turned to the senior slouching behind me. "Stargirl?" I said. "What kind of name is that?" "That's it. Stargirl Caraway. She said it in homeroom." "Stargirl?" "Yeah." And then I saw her, at lunch. She wore an off-white dress so long it covered her shoes. It had ruffles around the neck and cuffs, and it looked like it could have been her great-grandmother's wedding gown. Her hair was the color of sand, and it fell to her shoulders. Something was strapped across her back, but it wasn't a book bag. At first, I thought it was a miniature guitar. I found out later it was a ukulele. She did not carry a lunch tray, She did not carry a large canvas bag with a life-size... She did... Oh, no. I'm going to start that paragraph. She did not carry a lunch tray. She did carry a large canvas bag with a life-size sunflower painted on it. The lunchroom was dead silent as she walked by. She stopped at an empty table, laid down her bag, and slung the instrument strap over her chair and sat down. She pulled a sandwich from the bag and started to eat. Half the lunchroom kept staring. Half started buzzing, talking a lot. Kevin was grinning. What'd I tell ya? I nodded. She's in 10th grade, he said. I hear she's been homeschooled until now. Maybe that explains it, I said. Her back was to us, so I couldn't see her face. And no one sat with her, but all the tables next to hers were cramming two to a seat. She didn't seem to notice. She seemed to marooned on a sea of staring, buzzing faces, right? She seemed fine being alone. Kevin was grinning again. You thinking what I'm thinking? He said. I grinned back and nodded. Hot Seat? Hot Seat was our in-school TV show. Like, what's good? We had started it the year before. I was producer and director, and Kevin was on-camera host. Each month, he interviewed a student. So far, most of them had been honor student types, athletes, model citizens, noteworthy in the usual ways, but not especially interesting. Suddenly, Kevin's eyes boggled. They came out big. The girl was picking up her ukulele, and now she was strumming it. And now she was singing. Strumming away, bobbing her head and shoulders, singing, I'm looking for a four-leaf clover, and that over I looked before. She stoned silence all around. Then came the sound of a single person clapping. I looked. It was the lunch line cashier. And now the girl was standing, slinging her bag over one shoulder and marching among the tables, strumming and singing and strutting and twirling. Heads swung, eyes followed her, and mouths hung open. Disbelief. When she came by our table, I got my first good look at her face. She wasn't gorgeous, wasn't ugly. A sprinkle of freckles crossed the bridge of her nose, and mostly she looked like 100 other girls in school, except for two things. She wore no makeup, and her eyes were bigger than I had ever seen, like a deer's caught in the headlights. She twirled as she went past, her flaring skirt brushing my pant leg, and then she marched out of the lunchroom. Page 6. From among the tables came 3 slow claps. Someone whistled. Someone yelped. Kevin and I gawked at each other. They looked at each other with their mouths open. Kevin held up his hands and framed a marquee in the air. Hot Seat, coming attraction, Stargirl. I slapped the table. Yes! And we slammed hands. Sounds interesting. Here we go, chapter 2. When we got to school the next day, Hillary Kimball was holding court at the door. She's not real, Hillary said. She was sneering. She's an actress. It's a scam. Someone called out, who's scamming us? The administration, the principal, who else? Who cares? Hillary wagged her head as the absurdity of the question. A hand flashed in the air. Why? School spirit, she spat back. They think this place was too dead last year. They think if they plant some nutcase in with the students, like they plant narcs in schools, someone shouted, like when they put the police in schools to find the drugs or criminals. So Hillary glared at the speaker, then continued. Some nutcase who stirs things up. Then maybe all the students will go into a game once in a while or join a club. Instead of making out in the library, chimed another voice, and everybody laughed, and the bell rang, and we went in. Hillary Kimball's theory spread throughout the school and was widely accepted. You think Hillary's right? Kevin asked me. Stargirl's a plant? They don't mean a plant like one that grows in the dirt. They mean a plant like someone who was planted there or put into the school to like change things. Not an actual green growing plant. She's not a plant. I snickered. Listen to yourself. And he spread his arms. What? This is Micah Area High School, I reminded him. It's not a CIA operation. Maybe not, he said, but I hope Hillary's right. Why would you hope that? If she's not a real student, we can't have her on Hot Seat. Kevin wagged his head and grinned. As usual, Mr. Director, you fail to see the whole picture. We could use the show to expose her. Can't you see it? He did the marquee thing with his hands again. Marquee is like a sign. Hot seat uncovers faculty hoax. I stared at him. You want her to be a fake, don't you? He grinned ear to ear. Absolutely. Our ratings will go high, sky high. I had to admit, the more I saw of her, the easier it was to believe she was a plant, a joke, anything but real. On that second day, she wore bright red baggy shorts with a bib and shoulder straps, overall shorts. Her sandy hair was pulled back into twin plaited pigtails, braided pigtails, each tied with a bright red ribbon. A rouge smudge applied to each cheek, which is blush, and she had even dabbed on oversized freckles on her face. She looked like Heidi or Bo Peep. If you don't know who those are, Google them, and you'll get a good picture. At lunch, she was all alone again at her table. As before, when she finished eating, she took up her ukulele. But this time, she didn't play. She got up and started walking among the table. She stared at us all. She stared at one face, then another, then another. The kind of bold, I'm looking at you stare you almost never get from people, especially strangers. Page 9. She appeared to be looking for someone, and the whole lunchroom had become very uncomfortable. As she approached our table, I thought, what if she's looking for me? The thought terrified me, so I turned from her. I looked at Kevin, and I watched him grin goofily up at her. He wiggled his finger at her and whispered, Hi, Stargirl. I didn't hear an answer. I was intensely aware of her passing behind my chair. She stopped 2 tables away, and she was smiling at a pudding-bodied senior named Alan Furco. The lunchroom was dead silent. She started strumming the uke and singing. It was Happy Birthday. When she came to his name, she didn't sing his first name at all, but his full name. Happy birthday, dear Alan Furco. Alan Furco's face turned bright red as Bo Peep's pigtail ribbons. There was a flurry of whistles and hoots, more for Alan Furco's sake, I think, than hers. As Stargirl marched out, I could see Hillary Kimball across the lunchroom, rising from her seat, pointing, saying something I could not hear. I'll tell you one thing, Kevin said, as we joined the mob in the hallway. She better be fake. I asked him what he meant. I mean, if she's real, she's in big trouble. How long do you think somebody who's really like that is going to last around here? Good question. Sorry, my giant hands are in the way. There we go. Page 10. Micah Area High School, MAHS, was not exactly a hotbed of nonconformity. Nonconformity means not being like everybody else. There were individual variants here and there, of course, but within pretty narrow limits. We all wore the same clothes, talked the same way, ate the same food, and listened to the same music. Even our dorks and nerds had an MAHS stamp on them. If we happened to somehow distinguish ourselves, we quickly snapped back into place like rubber bands. Kevin was right. It was unthinkable that Stargirl could survive, or at least survive unchanged among us. But it was also clear that Hillary Kimball was at least half right. This person calling herself Stargirl may or may not have been a faculty plant for school spirit, but whatever she was not real. She couldn't be. Several times in those early weeks of September, she showed up in something outrageous. A 1920s flapper dress, an Indian buckskin, a kimono. One day she wore a denim miniskirt with green stockings, and crawling up one leg was a parade of enamel ladybugs and butterfly pins. Normal, for her, were long floor-brushing pioneer dresses and skirts. Again, if you want a better mental picture of those, you should Google those so you can see what she looked like. Every few days in the lunchroom, she serenaded someone with a new happy birthday. And I was glad my birthday was in the summer. In the hallways, she said hello to perfect strangers, and the seniors couldn't believe it. They had never seen a 10th grader so bold, so brave. In class, she was always flapping her hand in the air, asking questions, though the question often had nothing to do with the subject. One day she asked a question about trolls in U.S. history. She made up a song about isosceles triangles, and she sang it to her plain geometry class. It was called Three Sides I Have, but Only Two Are Equal. She joined the cross-country team, and our home meets were held at the Micah County Country Club for golf course. Red flags showed the runners which way to go. In her first meet, out in the middle of the course, she turned left when everyone else turned right. They waited for her at the finish line, and she never showed up. She was dismissed from the team. She was asked to leave the team. One day, a girl screamed in the hallway, and she had a tiny round face pop up from Stargirl's. She had seen a tiny brown face pop up from Stargirl's sunflower canvas bag. It was her pet rat. It rode to school in her bag every day. One morning, we had a rare rainfall. It doesn't rain a lot in Arizona. It's pretty hot and dry there. It came during her gym class, and the teacher told everyone to come in. On the way to the next class, they looked out the windows, and Stargirl was still outside, in the rain, dancing. We wanted to define her, to wrap her up as we did each other, but we couldn't seem to get past weird and strange and goofy. Her ways knocked us off balance. A single word seemed to hover in the cloudless sky over the school. Huh? Everything she did seemed to echo Hillary Kimball. She's not real. She's not real. And each night in bed, I thought of her as the moon came through my window. I could have lowered my shade to make it darker and easier to sleep, but I never did. In that moonlight hour, I acquired a sense of the otherness of things. I liked the feeling the moonlight gave us, as if it wasn't the opposite of day, but its underside, its private side. When the fabulous purred on my snow white sheets like some dark cat in dark... I'm going to start back here. I liked the feeling the moonlight gave me, as if it wasn't the opposite of the day, but its underside, its private side. When the fabulous purred on my snow white sheet like some dark cat come in from the desert. It was during one of those night moon times when it came to me that Hillary Kimball was wrong. Stargirl was real. Dun, da, da, da. Okay, so now you should go back, look up your word that I gave you on your sheet, and I'm pretty sure your word was strumming. So look up what strumming means, write your definition, sentence, part of speech, and a drawing. You send it to me in an email, you can keep it in a Word document, or you can just put it on a piece of paper for after when we come back. Then you should go find 2 other words that were new to you and look those up. And finally write a 2 to 3 sentence summary about today. And I'll be back with more reading in the plants for tomorrow. All right, guys, miss ya, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.